Okay, now we're on Chapter 8, Lesson 5, and it's Interpret Division with Fractions. The directions state, write an equation to represent the problem, then solve. Before we could really write the equation to represent the problem, I wanted to use the picture box method, the part-whole relationships, so that we could see what our dividend and our total is. Because when we look at these numbers, I know it says division, so we're going to assume 1/2 divided by 3 or 3 divided by 1/2, but which one is it? And I don't want you just to guess. We've learned how to do both ways. I want you to know which one it is because of the concept itself. That being said, let us review. Daniel has a piece of wire that is 1/2 yard long. He cuts the wire into 3 equal pieces. What fraction of a yard is each piece? Now, the total is going to go on top, and that's the total that you're dividing or you're splitting into pieces. So what are you splitting into pieces? Are you splitting the 3 equal pieces into pieces? Or are you splitting up the 1/2 yard long wire? Well, 3 equal pieces, you can't split that. That's how many times you're splitting it. So you're splitting up the wire. And the wire is 1/2 a yard long. So that goes where the total or dividend goes, which is right on top. So 1/2 yard wire. And what you're doing with this wire is you're cutting it into pieces. So this one box will represent piece 1. This second box will represent piece 2. And this third box will represent piece 3. Now what goes inside? Do you know how large piece 1 is? Daniel has a piece of wire that is 1/2 yard long. He cuts into 3 equal pieces. What fraction of a yard is each piece? You don't know, because it's asking you what fraction of a yard is each piece. That means, I don't know. That's your x, that's your variable. But then again, look at piece 2. Do you know how big it is? Again, you don't know. But what you do know is that they're equal pieces. Since they're equal pieces, you're going to give them the same variable, x and x. Piece 3 is also an equal piece, and so it will also be x. Now, as you can see, the number is repeating, and it's also getting smaller. And so between addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, which one, because this is 1/2 and you're cutting it into smaller pieces, which two of these operations get smaller? Subtraction and division. Now, you could see that the x is repeating. X, x, and x. Repeated subtraction is division. And so we're going to do 1/2 divided by 3. After we've set up the equation, which is arguably perhaps the hardest part, we kind of know how to solve this. We're going to circle the division sign and change it into multiplication. And then we're going to circle this number and flip the numerator and the denominator. But Ms. Tolentino, there is no denominator. Well, think about it. What is 3? 3 is the same as 3/1. Now you could flip the numerator and denominator. Keep in mind that the denominator is kind of invisible at the moment, but you could draw it in. So 1/2 stays the same. Don't flip that. That's the first number. And we're doing the reciprocal, where we switch the numerator and denominator of the second number. From here, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 3 is 6. And so your answer is 1/6. This piece is 1/6, this piece is 1/6, and this piece is 1/6. So each wire is 1/6 of a yard long. So if you want to turn this into a complete sentence, you could say each wire is 1/6 yards long. 1/6 of a yard long. You could see here, the answer is 1/6 yard. Comparing my work with theirs, you could see that the equation is right here. Oops. That's my equation. They could see the work is right here, and then our final answer. I don't want you writing it left and right like this, like they did. I want you to write it up and down so that I could see your process a little bit easier. Keep in mind you get 1 point for the correct picture, a point for the correct equation, and a point for the correct final answer. So this is going to be worth 3 points. Let's move on to number 2. Vita has a piece of ribbon that is 5 meters long. She cuts the ribbon into pieces that are each 1/3 meter long. How many pieces does she cut? So Vita is a name, apparently, in this example. And this, since it's a she, it's a female. This girl has a piece of ribbon that is 5 meters long. So if we're talking about a total here, we're talking about this ribbon that she has that is 5 meters of ribbon. And what she's going to do with this ribbon is she's going to cut the ribbon into pieces that are each 1/3 meters long. So they're saying that this first piece is 1/3 meters. The second piece is 1/3 meters. How many pieces does she cut? You don't know how many pieces she has. So if this is piece 1 and this is piece 2, this is piece, I don't know, question mark. You don't know how many pieces she has. So that is your X. What she's doing is she has 5 meters of ribbon and she's cutting into 1/3, cutting into 1/3, cutting into 1/3, and she's going to keep cutting until she runs out of ribbon. But how many pieces does she have? Now again, you have a total, your dividend, and you're getting smaller. You're taking that total and you're cutting it, cutting it, cutting it. Between addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, which two get smaller? Subtraction, division. And because you're repeatedly subtracting 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, you could divide these. Now, if you were to subtract, you could do 5 minus 1/3, minus 1/3, minus 1/3, minus 1/3 until you got 0, and count how many times you subtracted 1/3. But a faster way, repeated subtraction, is division. And you could do 5, your dividend, your total, divided by 1/3. Before we move on, I want you to notice that here, our whole number, 5, is first. Not because it's the bigger number, but because it's the total of what we have and what we're dividing up, what we're cutting into smaller pieces. Whereas here, it was the fraction, 1/2, because in the other one, the whole was the wire, and the wire was less than 1. So keep in mind, it's not the bigger number that goes first. It's what is it that you're cutting into a smaller piece. Just like the equation before, we're going to change the division into multiplication, and we're going to do the reciprocal of the second number. The reciprocal is when we switch the numerator and the denominator. We're going to switch the top number and the bottom number. So instead of it being 1/3, it's going to be 3/1. 5 times 3/1. Now there's two ways to do it. You could think of 3/1 as just 3, Miss Tolentino, so you could just think this equation is really asking you 5 times 3. Or you could also put a denominator of 1 here because 5 is the same as 5/1. 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 1 is 1. And so our final answer is 15 meters. Oh, not 15 meters, I'm sorry. 15 pieces. Now think about it. Here's piece 1, piece 2, piece 3, 4, 5. You could cut it 15 times. Actually, you'll cut it 14 times, but that's a different story. You'll have 15 pieces after you keep cutting minus 1/3, minus 1/3, minus 1/3. So you have 15 pieces that are 1/3 meters each. So you have 15 pieces that are each 1/3. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 15 times. But you have 15 pieces all in all. You're going to do the same thing for numbers 3 and 4. For numbers 5 and 6, you're going to create your own word story. But keep in mind that the 3 here better be what you are dividing. The 1/4 here better be what you are dividing. So when we're talking about it, we're not going to divide up 3 students. We're not going to divide up 3 girls. We're not going to divide up 3 boys. Okay? When you're doing your equation here, the 3 better not represent the people you're sharing it with. Likewise, we're not going to divide them into half. So be careful with your labels. We've practiced this a couple times in class, and I've often seen you guys get it right with a little bit of prompting, but make sure that yours makes sense. After you write your word problem, try solving it and see if it makes sense. After you write your word problem, draw a part whole and make sure that the 3 should go on top in your word problem. If the 3 doesn't go on top in your word problem, you wrote it wrong, and you have to think about it, okay? 7 and 8 are going to be very similar, and then the backside is. Keep in mind, once you hit the spiral review, it's no longer you're always going to divide the two numbers you see. Spiral review, spiral means it could have been anything we've learned thus far. So it could be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It could be exponents. It could be PEMDAS. It could be a lot of different things. So just because you see two numbers, once you hit spiral review, you're not dividing anymore necessarily. You might, because that might be what they're reviewing, but keep in mind, spiral reviews are our favorites because we could do anything we've learned. So good luck. Have a good day.